Well, James, great to meet you. Thanks for making time for us. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. This movie, Latency, also I think the original title was Hannah's Game. Really awesome stuff, mate. Where was the seed of this planted? Where did the idea come to you?
I was actually reading a New Scientist magazine many years ago, and there was an article about brain-computer interface technology that they were developing to use for epilepsy patients, and they talked about the possibility of using those devices to control computers. And I thought that the sort of inevitable conclusion to that would be that it would be applied to gaming. Um, I used to work at a small mobile phone gaming company that designing the games, so that was sort of in my mind. And there was a team of people there who often got their job was to test the games, and I just thought that was the coolest job I've ever heard of. And so those sort of two ideas came together and became this film.
Very cool, very cool. And I think it's relatable for a lot of people. I'm sure we've all lost time to video games. Mind you, I'm not a gamer. I'm like Wonder Boy is the last time I got lost in a game, but what's the longest gaming session you've ever done?
Me,
Yeah.
well, actually, in the film, there's a lot of references to Tetris in there, and I was one of those people who just got terribly, terribly hooked on Tetris. Um, it's actually a thing called syndrome where you start seeing Tetris in the world around you, and I definitely suffered from that, and
Yeah.
to the point where I can't play it now, otherwise it will come flooding back.
I Tetrised the shit out of my garage last week with all the boxes in there.
It's a good skill to have. I mean, packing at any time. Yeah.
Yeah, my problem is as a kid it was always columns, the Sega version of it
Oh, yes.
that I got lost in. Ben, you're a bit Tetrisy. I've seen your right behind you. You've got your collection. That's all very well packed.
It is. It is like it's lucky that when you can get to choose what the next block is. It's always a problem when it's forced upon you, like in the game. I used to think I was hot shit at Tetris, and then I took my Game Boy around to this to a mate's place, and he blitzed the thing. He sat on it for like the entire time I was there. He just played the thing, didn't die, and I was like, "What the?" He really put me in my place. I
Yeah.
never played it
Can be
again.
a bit humiliating that way.
It's like when you
Uh,
used to go to the arcade and there'd be like a gun at Street Fighter, and he just you'd go in every now and then. People would just stack up their coins and play against them, and you just get your ass handed to you.
Yeah. I was only ever a button masher at Street Fighter.
Yeah, yeah.
is that
I
why
had never had the memory for the move.
is that why you're a loser for life, Ben?
Yeah,
Yeah. In the film, like Sarah Lass is really good. Is she a gamer in real life? Because she kind of came across as
Sasha.
one.
Her name's Sasha.
Sasha, sorry.
Okay. No, not in real life. She has played games, obviously, but not as obsessed as some can get. But yeah, she really despite that, she really embraced the role. We were very lucky to have her on board and sort of just throwing everything she had at it. So
oh, look, she is both her and Alexis Ren are so good looking. I'm surprised that they've even heard of video games.
yeah.
Her character goes to some really sort of dark and fucked up places, like in reality is blurred sort of right through the story. Can you talk about directing her? Like, how did you two keep track of reality versus fantasy in terms of moderating her performance in any particular scene?
Yeah, I mean, we were very lucky in that well, it was a very short shooting period. We were able to, in most cases, keep it relatively chronological.
Mhm.
So that helped us sort of plan and strategize through our way through that process. And in a way, I was sort of freed up by the fact that her character d doesn't know herself what is reality and what is not. So it was okay. It was okay if I kept her in the dark a little bit, and sprung things on her. So it was sort of a whirlwind production where, we had a very short pre-production, very short shoot. So there wasn't actually much sort of prep time. So a lot of it was done on set, and which sort of, kept the energy going, which was great. And yeah, she never really knew what was going to hit her next, which is sort of the fun of the shooting process anyway.
So the production design, Bangkok.
Well, it's not set there, but we filmed it there. That's where so it's actually technically Thai. So the production company that produced the film is a Thai company called Chaos Entertainment, and certainly felt that way a bit at times. And hands down, the best catering I've ever had on film.
Yeah, right.
I was
Easily.
about to ask, like, what was the crew like working with the locals and stuff, but now I'm interested in the food.
But what
Well,
was
I mean,
the
the crew were wonderful, and I was, obviously working a lot through a translator,
Mm.
but a lot of the key crew, were fluent in English, and Sasha, the lead, had worked with that same crew before, so she was actually very familiar with the crew. But the very supportive, very lovely team of people who just, sort of embraced my way of working, which may be a bit different to what they're used to. But by the end of the very short shoot, they were sort of rolling with it, and it was great. It was great fun, and I made a lot of good friends along the way on that one, because I turned up in Bangkok, did not know a single member of the crew, not one. Like,
Wow.
just so, and I did personally had never been to Bangkok before either. So I was in a new city, entirely new crew, nobody had ever worked with before. Met Sasha and Alexis in person for the first time, arriving there, and sort of just went 16-day shoot, which is not much.
Man, that is a scary first time experience. It's like, is this how it's supposed to be? Like, you're getting a really weird taste of what it's like to make a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I know how it's supposed to be, and uh,
that's not it.
that was not how it's supposed to be.
How did you
But,
deal with the heat?
oh man, just sweated a lot.
Not-
It was entirely, well, apart from just a couple of scenes, it's almost entirely a studio shoot. So we had the air conditioning cranking the whole time despite the sound,
that-
because it was, and also then the set within that was quite claustrophobic and had all that acoustic foam all over the walls, which sort of is, so I didn't realize this, but it's surprisingly good at keeping the heat in.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. Well, because
so
none of the actresses look, super sweaty or anything like that. Like I did behind the scenes on a movie shot in an old home hardware warehouse
mhm,
in the Gold Coast,
right.
and they couldn't have the air conditioning going because of the sound, and it was
Brilliant.
unpleasant.
Yes. Yeah.
And how is it that a small, sort of relatively small indie film like yours has better digital and creature effects than some of the biggest Marvel movies? Can you talk about, like, the digital effects? Is that like your wheelhouse? Is that a specialty for you?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a background in production design, so not VFX, but I know how to get a pretty picture on a screen,
Mm-hmm.
and so once we hit sort of post-production, also able to bring those skills to my directing and communicate to the VFX team, this is what it should look like, and I'd Photoshop up pictures and say, can we make it work like this? But you do all the hard animation stuff and make it move. I'll just make it look pretty in one single frame, and go from there. So, and we had the team, well, I should say multiple teams who worked on the VFX. They sort of shopped it out to the right people. So if someone was particularly skilled at a particular effect, that we would give them that particular task. So it was sort of targeted VFX. And so yeah, it was interesting. It was a very, very, I was saying about fast shoot. It was a very, very long post production to get all the VFX up to scratch.
Does having the effects sort of occupy a simulation, like, make it a bit lighter work? Like, you can always throw a glitch here or there, just to cover any kind of tracks.
Yeah, I mean, often I was saying, I think it should be more glitchy than this. It's too smooth, like, we need it to be a bit faulty. So, and there's because it's, whatever happens, it's sort of a lot of the effects are in the story are being generated by a machine. So there needs to be some imperfection happening there.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
cool.
I'm really curious with the creature design. Like, how does that work? Do you get like the animators come to you with a whole bunch of different ideas of these could be the creatures, or do you have a very specific idea of what you want them to look like?
Yeah, I mean, initially, actually, in the very first screenplay, I had just written like zombie type creatures because I thought budget-wise that we would just be able to have people being zombies.
Hmm.
And when the production company said, we think we can pull this off as with VFX, I jumped at it because, of course, that's going to look more like an actual computer game and sort of free me up to go a bit more wild. And there were just design wise, I wanted to sort of sort of acknowledge or touch on some pre-existing games. So there were, I gave the VFX guys a lot of references of existing games. Sketched some stuff myself and said, like this bit of this head and that bit of that arm, and let's all sort of Frankenstein it together to create our own thing. And then and they of course I mean they came to me with some really wacky, crazy designs, which were really great fun and really good designs. But I was like, well, no one's going to recognize that as a computer game monster. It's sort of because in that opening sequence, especially, you sort of want people to sort of run with it because they don't know what's happening in that moment, and then when you realize it's a computer game, go, oh yeah, that makes sense. They look like computer game creatures. So I didn't want to go so far away from sort of a more let's say common, that's the wrong word, but
Hmm.
a, a design that people won't sort of balk at as a computer game.
Yeah, cool.
So the other thing that was really impressive about the film, I thought, was the sound design, especially
Oh,
when the computer talks, because it like totally sounded like it was like a godlike presence, kind of like the backgrounds, the voice of the characters kind of lessened, and the it really sounded like a computer voice coming in over the top. I
I'm,
was like, really,
I'm so glad that you say that. The sound design team on this film are just phenomenal. It's Unison Sound who here in Sydney, and their Luke Minot, who's the sound designer on the film. He was actually one of the first film industry people professionals that I showed the script. So before showing producers or anything, I took it to the sound designer and said, "Is this even possible? Can we do this? Because it's really." Sound heavy as a film, even though it's, sort of very contained as a piece. I was relying a lot on sound design for it. And so I was so lucky to have Luke come on board as the sound designer all the way through. And, a lot of his feedback then played back into the screenplay. So once I'd given him the sort of first draft, he said, we could also do this. And I just wrote that back straight into the screenplay which was a very unique and wonderful sort of collaboration process. And then the voice, Chloe Schwank, the actress, she's an excellent actor, excellent voiceover artist, and then running that through with Luke to sort of put the effects on there and get it coming through the multiple speakers around the apartment. So to get that sort of full surround sound sort of feeling. Actually, in the cinemas, it's pretty phenomenal. That especially that scene you're mentioning, because
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
whirls around you. Yeah,
Makes me wish I had seen it in a theater. That would have been awesome.
I wish you had.
Yes. It's a very great. Obviously, the whole thing is a great concept, very self-contained. But the idea itself is so huge. Is it something you would consider expanding upon, or is it something that you've done and you're moving on from?
Yeah, I mean, I had great fun doing it, and I find uh, sort of great. I get excited by technology and the potential of technology. Some people interpreted this film as like anti-AI, but it isn't. I'm a big fan of technology, and not that I'm sort of totally excited about it. But it's actually it's about Hannah. The story is actually about Hannah, and how she's sort of dealing with deep-seated trauma. It's just this potential technology is actually just releasing it into the world, her subconscious into the world around her. So it's still all very much driven from her and her character. So yeah, I mean it's certainly an area I would explore. I have other screenplays and they're all a little bit of a mashup of sci-fi, hints at horror in there, and I find that those worlds interesting and fun, and so I definitely explore stuff like that more if I get the chance.
Yeah, hope you do. I want to talk about your influences really quick, because I feel like there's a little bit of a Cronenberg feeling there. There's definitely some Existenz. There's some Vincenzo Natali, and I'm guessing you're a fan of Bad Boy Bubby as well. What are some influences of yours, that sort of, when you're creating something like this, you lean into?
Yeah, definitely. I would say Videodrome as well. And I really like, I think they call it J horror. So The Ring and The Grudge and Juno. So and that's certainly those sort of films were the references I would say that influenced particular screenplay. Obviously, my general influences are broader than that, but there's some. I like to drop little hints in along the way as well of almost homage to those sort of films. It's tricky actually. I sort of discovered while making while making the film that sort of a fine line between homage and ripping off. So and I'll be the first to admit it. And it's when I think I'm sort of acknowledging a great film or something, people might interpret that as
What's
just
the
totally ripping it off.
what's
You got
the
to be
what's
like either
the
really, really clear that it's a homage or, um, yeah. Anyway,
isn't the
I
line
learned from my mistakes. That's fine.
isn't the line great writers no good writers borrow from other writers, great writers steal outright? I think that's the
What are
Well,
you
I'm probably
saying,
just a
man?
very, but I like to think that I'm just a very average writer.
Oh my goodness! So I want just talking about beyond influences, just your film journey. Like, you own a production company, and by the looks of it, you're one of those guys like us that just lives and breathes films. Where did the love of cinema get its hooks into you? Was there a pivotal moment where you decided this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Gremlins.
Yes.
Uh, Seeing that as a child, I was just like, I want to do that. I didn't even know what that was, but it was just like that. Just looks whatever that is. I want to do that. That's fun. And there's actually in Latency, there's a bit where she opens up a cardboard box from her past, and there's a little Spike Gremlin figurine in there, just as a little wave.
Love that
Um,
stuff.
and so there's quite a lot of that stuff actually dotted throughout the film. I'm the only person in the world who gets it, but
Well, now other
I was
people
going
can
to
get
say
one
that
for it.
the big difference between you and Glenn is when Glenn saw Gremlins, all he wanted to do was put like live animals in the microwave. So yeah, I think you definitely went the right way.
yeah. So yeah, and it was my in reference to sort of career trajectory. I sort of went a bit offline to theatre. So I actually had a lot of experience in theatre. Got into production design and building sets, and but the sort of love of film was always there. And so eventually ended up going to film school and learning all those tricks of the trade and cutting my teeth as a production designer. And honestly, what happened where I changed from production design to writing screenplays, actually, that as a designer, I was being sent scripts that I didn't want to design because they were boring.
Mm.
So I thought instead of complaining about it, I should put my money where my mouth is and put pen to paper and started that process. It's been long and it's been difficult like it is for anyone in the film industry. And when I got the opportunity to make Latency, I jumped at it.
Very, very cool, mate. And lastly, I'm guessing it's not a one and done, and you've got something else in the pipeline, I hope.
There's actually a screenplay that I wrote for a friend of mine who's a director called Bound, which they just signed Jonathan Rhys-Meyers into the lead role, which is great. So hopefully that will get up and running sooner rather than later. And then I have my own writer-director projects as well. That I made a short film called Shift a while ago, and I'm sort of trying to get a feature-length version of that up and running, which is a sci-fi action film.
Amazing. I did see a little rise out of bed when you said the word bound. It's like, is there any lesbian sex scenes in this one?
But certainly not.
Oh my God, James, well, thanks so much for making time. Latency is fantastic, and I'm assuming everyone listening to this should go and check it out. It's through Eagle Entertainment. It's in all the retailers, and it'll be online soon. So thanks so much for taking time.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Wait a minute. There.
Really?
I thought you fixed it.
I thought I had.
Yeah, well, that's why we tested. It's exactly the same as sleep as it is when I'm awake. Your mom was agoraphobic too. I'm here, just like her, unable to leave. Game after game. So what is it? I want some pro gamers to test it before the launch.
Hello, Hannah.
Hi?
The Omniac will decode patterns of your brain.
This is amazing.
Calibration complete.
Let the games begin.
The more you wear the Omnia, the faster it will learn.
Shut up. Yeah! Oh my God. Jen, I won! Jen, I won the whole tournament. Jen, is that you? Hey, it's not a game. And are you okay? Have you even slept? I don't know if other testers said anything about side effects or something. How did you get in?
We've always been here.
No more. I have to get out of here.
Touch me, baby, tainted love.
Omnia, are you doing this?
The Omnia will only do what you ask of it.
You are doing this! You are controlling me! All I've had was the games. Game after game. Open the door and walk out.
The Omnia is with you. Always.